pairing.
Okay, so bottom right, there's a wheel.
On Zoom?
A wheel.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Now. Hi. Just making sure that we're all set up for captions. So
Bottom right, there should be a wheel. And then if you click on that, the captions, you just toggle the captions on.
So assign a participant to type.
Pardon?
I can't see a wheel, I'm afraid.
Oh, I tested it. Sure.
Yeah.
Right hand side. Hang on. Let me jump onto. I can definitely see it. Let me see. Okay, I think I've been able to do it from my side via Facebook. Cool.
Wonderful. Are we ready? Amazing. Thank you, Rosemary. So thank you, everybody, for joining. This is our first Face Equality Week Facebook Live panel. So bear with us whilst we get all of the tech right. We want to make sure that we've got some live captioning all set up. So thank you so much for joining us, whether you are watching live or watching this back via our brand new education hub. This week is all about education around breaking down stigma and barriers and opening up vital conversations about what it's like to live with a facial difference right now. So I am here for a panel on representation beyond the external, joined with some wonderful panelists who you may recognise, you may not. I think it would be the best thing to do would be to run around the room and to introduce each of yourselves. So I'm going to start with the first person on my screen, which is Emma Gardner.
Hi everyone, I'm Emma Gardner. I am co-founder of an equity and inclusion consultancy called Born Equal. My co-founders Nicola and Deborah and I set up the company, I suppose, to use our creative voices and expertise to try and impact social and environmental change. And we do that through using our lived experiences and our collective passions and I suppose our individual skill sets to help companies by providing them with sustainable equity and inclusion training. I am also a mother. I have a 7-year-old daughter, Dottie, who is disabled, and she has 100% been the catalyst for a lot of the work that I've done and the career choices I've made in the last five or 6 years. And I suppose my desire and passion and drive to make the world a more inclusive place for definitely specifically disabled people, you know, to give her a better future, but to provide inclusion for everyone. So I'm doing lots of different projects with a lot of disabled consultants and creatives alongside my work at Born Equal in order to achieve that.
Thanks, Emma. Lovely to hear from you. Okay, next I'm going to go to Jaz.
Hi, y'all. My name is Jaz. I am a researcher, an educator, an advocate, and a storyteller. So I had a pretty typical childhood for the first 9 or 10 years of my life. A loving family, friends, and I had dreams of being an entertainer, a singer, a dancer, and an actress, and I was going to take the world by storm. And around 10 years old, my world was turned upside down when I was diagnosed with a rare craniofacial condition. And by the time I was 14, that world that was upside down began to shake and quake profusely. I was found out I have a condition that when our blood vessels are connected incorrectly, too much blood rushes through and destroys everything in its path. So it started with my bottom lip and destroyed my tongue, my jaw, not cheek, not eye, impacting my ability to speak and eat, as well as do simple things like go to classes because I was bleeding so much. But there was one saving grace that continued to keep this world that was upside down and shaking stable, and that was storytelling. I believe story is a divine tool that we use not only to heal ourselves, but to empower others and free others to do the same. And so in the midst of 47 to date, 47 surgeries, I have turned that passion for storytelling into a career. I have a bachelor's degree, a journalism degree, a master's in TV and film production. I moved to Los Angeles and decided to go into one of the most superficial industries in the world that you can imagine, and that's Hollywood. Why I decided to do that, but I have learned so many lessons about being a disabled woman, working her way behind the scenes that I'm so grateful that I have, so I can use my experiences to share with others. And so now I am back in school for a third time, getting a PhD at the University of North Carolina. And when I graduate in August, I will become a professor and use the research that I've done so far to continue my work in shining an intersectional lens on disability, justice, and advocacy.
Wow, incredible. So such important work, and so resonates so much with the theme of education. So thank you so much, Jaz, for joining. We seem to have lost Adam. Classic, being a diva. He'll just stroll back in when he wants to. I did say that this would be an informal discussion, so hopefully you'll bear with us and Adam can introduce himself again once the technology is working for him. In the meantime, I'll keep an eye on my phone. But just to introduce myself briefly, I am the Chief Exec of Face Equality International. I started in this role at the beginning of the year. Before that, I had been running the communications for the charity, and I've been working in this space pretty much ever since 2016 when I was in a car accident and I came out with significant facial scarring, and I set out on the path to want to reshape the narrative on scars. I had some quite negative experiences sharing my story, where it was sensationalized, and I felt like it was playing into the narrative of people with facial differences being other, and victims and villains, and I set out to challenge that and to prove the world wrong. Which is exactly why we are here today to talk about representation. And I think it's important to frame this conversation in the context of wider disability policy and wider disability rights. So not everybody with a facial difference who is potentially watching this might identify as having a disability. But I think when we're talking about policy, when we're talking about legislation, when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, that is the route via which people are going to see their rights protected in terms of employment. So I think it's really important to just frame that and talk about it within that context, because actually it's incredibly empowering to know that there are initiatives in this space to give people opportunities. And the reason that I've asked everybody here today to talk about representation beyond the external is that I believe that we are starting to see more examples, more people who might look slightly different in advertising campaigns or on our screens, but actually, are we seeing them represented in the right way? Are we actually seeing that as a reflection of the makeup of an organization? Or is it potentially just a PR stunt? Or is it something that's done in a way that really centers that real life experience? And I think that was why I wanted to invite each of you here today, is because you are all providing those practical solutions for businesses, for brands, for production companies. And I think it's really important to reflect upon that. And Jaz, when we had our introductory call recently, you said something so important to me, which was about the echo chamber. And we so often speak to, all of us who are here today, we get it. We kind of understand what the issues are and where we want to see society going. But I think the whole focus of this needs to be about, okay, how can we have these discussions? How can we provide practical solutions and reach people with that and help to have these conversations in a shame-free way where actually it empowers people to make change. So I just wanted to start off by asking each of you to reflect upon, do you think that we are starting to see change? Do you think that we are starting to see more people with differences and disabilities in public life? I'm going to start with you, Emma.
Yes, I think we are definitely starting to see change. I think you can, you can list instances now where, different people appear on screen, and that's great. And I think there have been some really great moves forward. I have a background in advertising and media, so I think, from an advertising perspective, just even in the last 3 or 4 years, I've certainly seen many more instances where brands and agencies are working together to represent people with disabilities or differences on screen. And the sort of fashion world seems to be going into that direction as well. If you think about Ellie Goldstein for Gucci, who's a young model with Down syndrome, and I'm a big fan of Aaron Phillip, who is, I think in 2018 he was, I think the only, or appointed as the only Black transgender, Black transgender disabled model, assigned to a major modelling agency. So I think that there are some big things, and the likes of big brands like Moschino are now employing Aaron for their work. So I think on the one hand, yes, but I would also say that when it comes to certain representations or narratives, sometimes within advertising, but I would say certainly in the film industry, from the things that I've seen and in that sector, I still think that the conversations, certainly the ones that I'm seeing and following, and to some extent within my own echo chamber, I suppose, are the ones that are potentially more damaging, or just because it's a representation doesn't mean it's a responsible one. And I could think of lots of things that have happened, or films that have been discussed in that light in the last few years, from Wonder to The Witches to even going into Sia's moving music. So I wonder what responsible representation looks like for the people creating these films, and whether they are either caught in their echo chamber or convincing themselves that doing something is better than nothing, and sort of trying to lead the way in that respect, or is it just pure ignorance? But either way, I think there is much more representation overall. There could be way more. The bar is still very low, but unpacking how people are being represented in this space, I think, is something that needs way more work.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. And I know you and I have similar experiences in terms of our affiliations with agencies like Zebedee, who, are kind of enabling brands and businesses to reach talent who might look different or might have a disability. And I think, judging by how busy they are over the past couple of months, I think it's definitely a sign that businesses are waking up. I think where the potential problems might lie is whether this is just a trend, whether we are actually going to see long-term lasting moves towards centering real life experiences, and whether it will last or whether it is just a fashionable thing. I was having a discussion on Clubhouse last night with one of our member charities, with someone who had been conducting research about the fashion industry in particular, and how particularly minority women had been excluded from the industry, and this was people from minority backgrounds, but also just how actually it was a trend thing, it was a fashion thing. It wasn't that fashion industry professionals were actually going to see it as something that was going to stick around forever. So it's tricky Jaz, what do you think? Have you noticed, you've spoken about working in Hollywood, working in the film industry, working in journalism. Have you noticed from a perspective in the US, a change towards seeing more people who look different on our screens and in advertising?
Yes, I can speak about like film and TV particularly, that yes, there is a change happening. I think the question though is about pace and to what extent, because I think what you said about trends is really important. And I think we can use historically looking at other marginalized communities and how things have happened for other groups in the past as a kind of a blueprint for what we may be able to expect when it comes to disability. And what we know from the integration of particularly Black African Americans in entertainment in Hollywood is it starts out where there's some sort of movement to push the on-screen representation, and that happens. And then there's a push toward representation that isn't stereotypical, because whenever you see the representation in the beginning, it's always going to be somebody else's, sometimes very awful stereotypical versions of who we are. So for Black people in Hollywood, it was servants, it was slaves, it was, excuse me, not, well, there were some slaves on TV, but a lot of servants, a lot of maids, a lot of, servant type roles. And then you have to get to a point where you can push for accurate representation or a more holistic representation. And then there becomes the question of control of the narrative. And we're just reaching a point in Hollywood where Black and brown and people of color are actually being able to own their own film studios. There's a director named Tyler Perry here in the United States who opened up a $1 billion studio in a city called Atlanta here, and he's producing shows for a variety of networks. So it's a progress, but I also want to point out that it's cyclical. So you have a give and take, you have progress, and then you have these points of recession. And so we have to just use some of that, what we've learned, to compare to disability. So we're going to have those same markers of progress, but we're also going to have the cyclical nature of things getting better and then getting worse and getting better. And we just have to hope that the cycle continues in the direction that we want it to go.
Yeah, I think you're highlighting such an important point as you introduced yourself around the importance of intersectionality and recognizing that we can't look at different equality issues in completely different ways. Yes, it's a very unique issue to be looking at, and we need to give everything the time and the individual considerations, but at the same time we have to learn from movements of the past, and we have to use those as reference points for the general public in terms of explaining, okay, this is a human rights issue, look at the moves in history, and actually can we learn from that? Can we try and eliminate some of these stereotypes from the off? But obviously we know right now with how we are seeing non-disabled actors playing disabled roles, or we are seeing those stereotypes played out not just on our screens but in the traditional media and social media as well. I know this is something that Adam, if I can get him to come in now, I know that this is something that Adam speaks about a lot. Let me see if this works. Adam, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Here we go. Yes. Technology has not been kind to me today.
Fine. You just had a dramatic entrance. It's very deep. I love it. We were just talking about the importance of looking at moves in history in terms of other equality issues, and Jaz was talking about how we can't look at them as isolated issues, and I know that this is something that you speak about. So yeah, I would love for you to introduce yourself and perhaps talk about how you have drawn reference in the past between, I know one of your lines is about referencing blacking up versus cripping up, and the importance of using that comparison. So introduce yourself and tell us.
Absolutely, let's do this. My name is Adam Pearson. I am a TV presenter, actor, a disability rights campaigner, media consultant, former celebrity mastermind champion. If you're not in the UK, that means nothing to you, but trust me, over here, quite the big deal. And I think Jaz is right. I think when we put some, when it comes to equality and diversity, either all of it matters or none of it matters. And if you aren't doing disability, if you aren't doing disfigurement, if you aren't doing visual difference, then I'm afraid to say you aren't doing diversity. All you've done is make a grey area called diverse-ish, where you can kind of dust your hands off and think you're doing enough, when in fact you aren't. And intersectionality plays a lot into this. I think we tend to put diversity into boxes, kind of, oh yeah, we'll put the BAME over here, we'll put the gays here, we'll put the transgenders here, and we'll put disability here. Whereas that's a very one-dimensional, monolithical way of looking at disability. And I think disability is 2 decades behind where BAME talent are now. And even the term BAME is a little bit one-dimensional and monolithic, or kind of Black, Asian, minority, ethnic. Well, someone who grew up in the Caribbean will have a completely different life experience and life story from someone who grew up in like the Congo or in Jamaica. Same with Asia. Someone who grew up in India will have a very different life experience than someone who grew up in like the suburbs of Tokyo. So we need to talk about these things with a great deal of breadth, a great deal of care, and a great deal of consideration. And in the same way that if they were making Crazy Rich Asians 2, and they want someone to play an 8-year-old Asian girl, I have no business in the audition room. I'm not going to be sitting there staring at my phone with bated breath. And when they don't call me, I'm not going to get pissy about it and say, oh, it's just another example of wokeness gone mad. Whereas disability doesn't get given the same credence. Disabled actors, disabled performers, disabled writers, disabled directors are often overlooked. And I think it's because we conflate disability with inability. And if you're telling disabled stories, you should probably be listening to disabled people. And at the moment, and even Alex Mahon, head of Channel 4, said this, ableism is rife in the creative industries. And that's not me trying to play the victim. That's not me trying to make some weird competition out of oppression. That's just simply a fact. As someone that's been working in it for over a decade and has experienced it firsthand. I'm someone who's been asked in commissioning meetings, and what's the disability moment with this idea? And there isn't one. I think disability, and particularly disfigurement, once it becomes incidental, once you make it a thing as opposed to the thing, that's when we've cracked it. But I think we're a million miles away from where we need to be. And I think there's a real informal nature that surrounds the creative industries that doesn't really help, and it makes it so hard to hold people accountable. And I'm bored of panels, I'm bored of discussions, I'm bored of excuses. And I think we need to start holding people's feet to the fire and saying, whoa, what the hell? Here's what you're saying, here's what you're doing. They are miles apart. In any other industry, you'd have been fired months ago.
Well, I think you're completely right there. There is a real lack of accountability. And as you say, that comes from a lack of personal experience, and the negative examples and the poor portrayals and the stereotypes that we see in public life have a direct correlation with the lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion internally. And I think that's why I wanted to have this conversation today, because it's not just about the external, it's not just about putting someone in your ad campaign. The reason that we are seeing these harmful narratives, the reason that the witches made it to our screens, is because no one's had the ability to stick their hands up and say, this is not okay, this is harmful. And there is no accountability right now internally. I was listening to something on a Brene Brown podcast recently, and it was amazing, love her. And it was, what was her name? I've got it written down somewhere. It was a diversity, equity and inclusion specialist, and she was talking about Iko Bethia. And she was saying that the reason that every time something happens in a business and there's a Twitter storm and people hit out against something is because there's no accountability internally. There is no one in a senior management position, whether someone is able to speak up and have their voice heard or not, or whether there is simply just no one there. That accountability is not happening internally because people have been marginalized and left out of the boardroom and left out of the decision-making roles. So that accountability is online when something comes out, and there is this massive backlash on our social media feeds, and then you get the anti-woke police, or this is political correctness gone mad at the same time. But that is just the accountability of this, people recognizing that actually this has a direct impact on our lives. And there was a post yesterday from the Valuable 500 initiative, which is a initiative for corporate businesses to pledge to better disability representation in businesses. And they posted to say that there are no executives or senior managers who have disclosed a disability in any of the FTSE 100 companies. So this isn't just about advertising companies, this isn't just about media companies, this is about all business, this is about all employment. And I think it's important to talk about, yes, representation in creative industries, but also the reason I've asked all of you here is that you are providing those practical solutions for businesses of all kinds, and I would love to reflect upon that a bit more and just give each of you an opportunity to share what you do in terms of embedding diversity, equity and inclusion from the inside out. So Emma, please tell us about Born Equal Consults and what you do. And I know there's a TED conference coming up that you sponsored, and just use this as a moment to kind of talk about the mission and where you see it going.
I think what Adam's just said there is a brilliant point, but building on that to start with, which is, the perception of disability, or what we equate it to, or what society equates it to, is really the starting point. And I think the work that we do at Born Equal, and certainly something I'm really passionate about in terms of the perception of what people see of my daughter, or the people around me, or the people that can be employed, or it is that these dated and negative, wrong, inappropriate associations with the word disability or disabled people kind of, I think, give those that need to be held accountable a bit of a get out of free, I don't know whether this is sort of unconscious, or whether it's something that there is no education, there's no process that they go through, if you like, before representation that helps them understand why we're in the positions that we're in, and whether that is education around the different models of disability, whether that is talking to real life disabled people because they exist. I think there is still this big gap, and I think that what we try and do at Born Equal is use our lived experiences, but also bring in other people with lived experience. So I'm a carer of, a parent of a disabled child. I'm not a disabled person. There is no one voice on disability. There is intersectionality within disability, and we cover much more, than disability at Born Equal. But it is 100% a fundamental part of what we do, because you can't not include it. So you're not being inclusive if you're not talking about it, engaging with the disabled community, and sort of doing the work to, I suppose, help people understand where they're going wrong or why they're uncomfortable doing it. So So I think that's a big part of what we do, but I think for me, sponsoring things like the TEDx event, which is this Friday, it's TEDx Ladbroke Grove, it's called Alternative Paths, and it's about different storytellers, one of which is Suleiman Khan, who's a very good friend of mine, Born Equal, and the work that I've done in previous agencies. He is a disabled activist and entrepreneur, creative, mind-blowing man, and he's going to be talking. So we really do look for opportunities to support and champion the right kind of storytelling and the right narratives and the things that are going to open people's eyes and minds to those different narratives around disability. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is that later this year I'll also be launching an online, digital magazine with a couple of brilliant women. We've co-founded something called Not Your Monolith. So to your point, Adam, Not Your Monolith is an online magazine. I have kind of found a couple of people to go and create and curate this magazine full of and created by wonderful disabled talent. And it's, although not necessarily always disability-led content, it's always coming from that perspective and that lens, which is, usually on the whole missed out through mainstream media. And I'm really excited about projects like that, where I can get to work with and help support the work of other people in this space, because there's no reason for them not to have access to, the same things as everybody else. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing this not just as this conversation that is happening here and now for Face Equality Week. This is something that we would like to feature in our education hub long term, so that when we are engaging with businesses, with corporate business, with creative agencies, we say, look, go back and listen to this discussion, because there are experts out there, there are initiatives, there are businesses and consultancies that center real life experience, and actually there's no excuse not to go and do that, not to go and speak to people who deserve to be seen and to be heard. Definitely. So I think this is just an opportunity to really amplify that. So thank you, Emma. And I've told you this before offline, but I just love the Not Your Monolith message, and I think it's about reaching people in that kind of consumery, creative way, and giving people a platform. So I'm so excited to see what's to come from that. Jaz, I would love for you to tell me about, I know that you can speak to kind of employee networks and the importance of that in terms of guiding creative processes. I have written down here that you were the chair of the affinity group for Black African American employees, and also founded an ad hoc health committee to establish illness and disability as an integral part of the company's D&I initiatives. So tell me a little bit about that, because I think that is so important, particularly as we're talking about D&I from the inside out. I'd love for you to share.
Yes. DEI for me is something I'm very passionate about, obviously because it impacts me personally, but also because the lack of a focus on DE&I allows for so many talented people, so many people with so much to offer employers and companies. It leaves them out of their capacity to contribute. And so part of it is, as Emma began to touch on, educating people and educating employers about the importance. And I think a lot of that work is beginning to be done. If you look around at a lot of the corporations, they're very interested in doing diversity, equity, inclusion training. I think the next step is tied back to what Adam was saying earlier, is the accountability piece, because there's not, one of the things I have started to realize is there isn't enough DEI training in the world to force people to actually do the things that they know to do. And so we can train and we can inform, but at a certain point, we have to begin to create actionable milestones within these companies. Let's get some goals in place, and let's also work with some outside organization if you have to, that can hold you accountable and can say, okay, in 2021, you said that you wanted to increase the number of diversity, the number of disabled people in your corporation by X%. And then, okay, in 2022 or 2023, let's look back and see how far you have come, what has your progress been, what have the barriers been, and how can we help you overcome them? So now it's about really holding people's feet to the fire. And I think that whatever conversations are being had and whatever progress is had in media organizations is something that can be replicated in other corporations, as you said. I think when it comes to media, which is my first area of reference, I think we have to do a better job of reaching the people who are already qualified. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier about this whole thing about there's no one there, right? We heard that for generations in media, that I'm sure it's in every industry, this idea that disabled people aren't there because they're not qualified. So we have to dispel that notion and say, if you're looking around and there are no disabled people in your corporation, it's because there's a failure to reach the people who are qualified. Let's start there. And then we have to say, in addition to getting access to the people who are qualified, let's create a pipeline so that we can qualify the people who are called to do whatever work they're doing. We can absolutely qualify the call. There are people who are smart and intelligent who need to be educated in whatever industry that that's possible. So let's also create pipelines. And then let's really take that attitude that we have within the disability community, nothing about us without us, to task. And let's say if we're not in control of the narrative, if we're not in decision-making powers, you will not have our dollars, you will not have our cents, you will not use our stories to make money, whether it's in advertising, in media, or what have you. And so I think those are 3 ways that we can begin to make some real improvement.
Smashed it. Absolutely smashed it. Yeah, I think you're completely right. And yeah, that nothing about us without us. Yeah. Adam, over to you. Tell me about your work. I don't know whether there's that much that you can reveal. I know that you are doing lots of exciting things at the moment about embedding diversity, equity, and inclusion for businesses, and I know that you do consultancy around productions. But can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on right now and how we can equip businesses and employers with these tools?
Indeed. So I'm involved with a consultancy with a disability equality organization called Phyllida Swift, and I'm in their advisory wing, and we go into corporations of all sizes, and I guess we really strip it back. I think education and communication are completely inseparable, and I think when you're a veteran of the game, so to speak, as we all are, it's really easy to forget that not everyone else is. And so you need to meet people where they are, as opposed to where you wish they were. And I think, and I'm equally guilty of this as anyone, I've confused the idea of dumbing it down and walking it back, and thought they're the same thing. And I think we have a very politically charged culture now, where a lot of the silence isn't through ignorance or malice, but it's through fear. And people are so afraid of saying the wrong thing that rather than risking it and inadvertently getting it wrong, it's easier just to say nothing. And so one of our training sessions is just going in and just walking this right back and saying, okay, this is a completely open forum to ask anything you want about disability. We're going to completely humanize this issue, take away all the politics, take away all the medicine, and just talk as people. Because disabled people equally are people. Some of us are great, some of us aren't, some of us are even dickheads. This guy, and let's talk about that. Let's absolutely sit down and thrash this out. And then once we've done that, we can then do some real heavy lifting. And this isn't just us coming in and talking at you for 90 minutes. I have no interest in changing what you think about disability or what you think about disfigurement. If that's what I've done, I have abjectly failed you. I do, however, have every interest in changing how you think about disability and how you think about disfigurement. And these relationships have to be mutually beneficial. And it's creating those relationships, starting those conversations, giving people the freedom to ask what they think is a stupid question, and giving them the same respect and answer it in a way that's honest, not palatable. I think when you confuse honest and palatable, you do everyone a huge disservice. And that's another reason I think that we don't have accountability, is because everyone's being like, oh, we can't say that, we'll upset them. Sometimes people need to be upset. Like, I don't know if she is watching this, your movie, utter garbage.
She is watching.
Yeah, but just pretend like she is always watching. Make sure we gear all of our messaging towards her.
And yeah, so that's what we do. And it's all about talking about the elephant in the room. Because if you ignore the elephant in the room, it's bad for the room and it's bad for the elephant, and no one wins. And are these conversations awkward? Yes. Is it going to be uncomfortable? Yes. Is anyone going to die? No. So we create a 90-minute platform to be like, I'm going to make you all feel super awkward super quickly. But after that, take my hand and I'll get you through this. And we'll all leave this 90 minutes better people. And then we'll keep talking going forward. And together we're gonna crack this. And that's what it is. It's constant communication, it's constant dialogue. It's all about acknowledging your unconscious bias, challenging it, and either proving it or disproving it, and having the humility to say, I might have got this wrong, educate me. And if you want to, and it comes back to what we were saying earlier, if you want to know about disability, listen to disabled people. Don't listen to your diversity exec who has no clue of disability. Another analogy, if you will. Let's say there's a leak in your house and you call a plumber. And he comes around and says, oh yeah, you need to fix this, shut up here, do this. And then his wife walks in, who isn't a plumber, and goes, well, actually, I think you should do this. You have every right in that moment to go, with all due respect, shut up, I need a plumber in this situation. And what all industries need right now are disabled voices. So again, if you want to get disability right, I strongly suggest you listen to disabled people.
And I would add just real quick, not only listen to disabled people, but compensate the disabled people that you do plan to listen to for their time, for their physical effort, and for their emotional effort.
100%.
Absolutely. I am not a charity. I am an expert, and if you want my expertise, you will pay me. The amount of times I've been asked what charity I would like my fee donated to is insane.
Well, we are a charity, and that being said, we are incredibly grateful for your expertise and you being willing to share your experiences as part of this conversation. I think with that in mind, that is why I want it to be an opportunity for you to say this stuff, to say these are the products and services that we are delivering. And that is why we intend to feature this in our education hub, because we want that to be a vital practical resource for businesses, for employers, for schools, for community groups, and to say, yeah, this is valuable, and this work is not just about centering people's lives, but it's a livelihood. So I think you've completely covered it all there. I am conscious of time. I know I don't want to keep this too long. I will just say that if anybody has any questions, to put them into the Facebook comments section now, if everybody's happy to answer a couple of questions. I will get them passed on to me by someone who happens to be in the other room watching in and is on WhatsApp right now for me. But before that, I just wanted to give each of you an opportunity to kind of just say who you are again and how people can find you and your work. That would be really helpful. So yeah, just back to you, Emma.
Sure. So Born Equal Consults is the name of the company I've co-founded. Do check us out. The online digital magazine, which will be out later this year, is Not Your Monolith. So we're looking to build that following on social to create buzz at the moment. So that would be not_your_monolith on Instagram, but just Not Your Monolith on Twitter. And then, yeah, look out for, you can find me, Ms. as in MS _Emma_Gardner, to have a look at any of the other sort of up and coming projects in this space.
And Ladbroke Grove TED is coming up.
Ladbroke Grove TEDx is on Friday. Tickets you can find that through the same channels I've mentioned there on social. But yes, it is an event happening on Friday from I think 4 till 9:30. Tickets still available, and you can watch online as well. I think the auditorium tickets are on sale, but they will be socially distanced for those that can make it down. So yes, we're excited about that on Friday.
Wonderful. We have a question, a comment. I'm writing an article on this at the moment. I feel sometimes my facial difference is not considered extreme or serious enough to have my feelings and struggles validated. So extreme and serious were in inverted commas. I think, yeah, feeling invalidated is definitely something that lots of our community have told us is a regular occurrence. Hopefully, whoever commented on this will find that this may well be a valuable resource to go and provide audiences with that sense that there are more people who are working in this space. Any comments on that from any of the panelists? So I feel sometimes my facial difference is not considered extreme or serious enough to have my feelings and struggles validated.
I think that just speaks to a larger challenge within the disfigurement and facial difference community and how we see each other within the larger disability community. And you all are frozen.
Oh, we've lost you. I think, Jaz, that was a very valid point. I think there is a lot of resignation out there, and often people may fall between the cracks because public understanding of facial difference and disfigurement is quite lacking, and they might not understand. There you are, Jaz. You cut off slightly.
Sorry, I think it's not internet connection. Oh, technology, excuse me, y'all. Have you all moved on to the next question?
No,
Okay.
I think I was just trying to capture what you were saying about that this is a strong theme for our community.
Yeah, we really have to do a better job of speaking to the integration of ourselves in a conversation in a community that's dynamic and really allows us to fully to really articulate the extent to which having a facial difference impacts our ability to have, as you said earlier, to not only live, but to have a livable wage, to have a quality of life, and all of those other areas that are impacted by any other disability. And as the more we can integrate ourselves into the conversation, the easier it will be for any individual with a disfigurement or a disability to, at the very least, have some resources to do, like, actually, according to these resources here, having a disfigurement is a disability, and here's the research to back that up, and here are the other people who also hold this viewpoint. I think a lot of people that I've heard point to someone like an Ariel Henley, who through her work she's done, I've heard her name come up in some of my research as someone who, when there were doubts about that validity of my experience within a larger experience, they were able to point to her work. So to the person who wrote in, write your article. And allow people to amplify your platform. And you could be one of those voices that someone else can look to and say, yes, this is an issue, and it's a human rights issue, and it's worth being acknowledged.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. And I think about hopefully we can keep that in mind to whoever made that comment, is to say, okay, what can we do? How can we equip you with, whether it's a sense of community, whether it's a resource, whether we need to issue some guidance to help people to assert their rights, and understand from a kind of legal perspective how someone might be protected. And I think, Jaz, as you were talking there about Ariel Henley, who's an activist, I think, in the States. I mean, I've got a book right here in front of me that she's got a feature in called Disability Visibility. And I think that is a great empowering tool that I would recommend to anybody in this space. It's first person stories from the 21st century. And I think it's about recognizing that your feelings, your struggles are valid, and that we are working towards reducing those barriers. Again, conscious of time, but there is one more question which I think would be really relevant for you to answer, Adam, which is, it's from Crystal, and she says, I am up for a main role in a short film that has a few things I don't agree with, like a victim trope. I meet with them this week. Any advice on how to approach this? It's my first role and I don't know how much power I have.
Okay, no, really, really good question. Always address if you have concerns, always highlight them, talk to the director, get the tone of the conversation right, and do it in person, don't do it in writing. I think because of the internet, for want of a better term, the default tone of everything often sits in anger, even if that's not how it's written. And I know you, Crystal, so I know that that's not how you write. So yeah, absolutely address your concerns. But also, when I've had a couple of similar roles, I've always made sure there's a very good press strategy around it, so I can go and do the promotion work as Adam Pearson and sort of pick apart separate the character from the reality a little bit in the press work, because very often the role is the role. I mean, if it's atrocious, it might just be worth asking who the bloody hell wrote this. But also it's a conversation, and I think any open dialogue is progress. However, I always have a hard and fast rule when it comes to these kind of things. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong. So absolutely address your concerns. Try not to make it a power struggle. I think power dynamics like that in the film industry are heinously unhelpful. But also, don't be afraid to walk away. Don't be afraid to tell someone to piss off and that this is awful and that they need to try harder. Again, accountability. I think often, as they say with actors, we can just often be grateful for small mercies, and that only perpetuates the problem. And I have this chat with my agent all the time. We're like, yep, someone's got to be the bad guy. It might as well be me. I'm not the good guy. I'm not the bad guy. I'm the guy. And yeah, don't be afraid to put your foot down and stick up for yourself. And if you have to be difficult, you have to be difficult. So yeah, let your heart go into these conversations, clear head, full heart, and whatever happens, that's the right thing to do.
Well said.
I've turned down 5-figure numbers because projects have been awful.
Well said. And that takes a lot of integrity, doesn't it, to think about the greater good. And I think that's what this whole movement is about, okay, can we be thinking about the real life impact on, millions of people around the world if we, yes, echo. Go
And
on.
I think that's a really important thing to remember, and it's something that a lot of the time people forget. Sia, Riz Ahmed, Bryan Cranston, Bradley Cooper, whatever actor, whatever director can do something, can use kind of clipping up or use disfigurement as a shorthand for villainy or victimhood. They make the film, everyone gets paid, they all have a drink afterwards, and they walk away. They have that luxury.
Mhm.
I don't have that luxury. And there'll be people that will go out and see that, and that will inform how they think about people like me and people like us in the real world. And what was a job to you is then 5 years of our sake for me to undo and have to re-level the playing field. I can't walk away from it as easily. I don't have to go out and explain and disprove and keep having these what are now asinine, antiquated conversations that I really shouldn't be having to have in 2021. So what may seem like acting or just another project for someone, for me, is a daily reminder of how far we haven't come for disfigurement and disability
Mhm.
in our industry. And I'm sorry to end it on a downer. I had a witty joke written, can't tell it. And yeah, rock and roll.
No, I think that's so important. You have to remember that gut-wrenching feeling for someone every single time you see something on your screen and you're like, okay, well, I'm now forever going to be associated with that, or how's that going to make someone think about me? And it's really, I think you're completely right to highlight that we need those in positions of power and influence to understand the real life impact and how that lasts for so long. You know, we are still seeing the impact of old narratives that are hundreds of years old. So I think I think it's really important.
I know full well when that James Bond film comes out, that's going to take up a lot of my time.
Well, we've spoken about that on one of our previous Facebook lives where we said that we would stand in protest with a bunch of cats. So we're not going to go. Not going to go down that route again, but I could see you nodding along there, Jaz. And I just, before we round up, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to reflect upon that and offer any additional advice to Crystal.
Well, what I was going to say actually was just to make sure that Adam had a chance to plug one more time his organization, so that when people like Crystal, so that we can have him have someone for these actors to go to. So Adam, if you could do that, and I will also just add for Crystal, to just to piggyback on what Adam ended with, which is to know your value, know your worth, and know that no one person has the power to shut or open a door that ends your career before it gets started. And so if you have to say no, trust and believe that there's another opportunity that is better aligned for you, that is going to allow you to not only show up and get a role, so to get a role that represents your community well and goes further in helping us to make progress. Your story, who you are, is valuable. And go into each room with that in the back of your mind and how you approach building relationships in the industry.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful way to finish things off. Thank you, Jaz. So yeah, to recap, Adam, tell us how people can stay in touch with you and your work.
So you can follow me on Twitter at Adam_Pearson. That's where I do most of my, I'm going to call it ranting, because that's what it is at this point. If you don't like sort of like backhanded disabled jokes of pro wrestling, my Twitter might not be your thing, but give me a follow anyway. I've got a bet with a friend as to who can get to 20,000 first, and I'm currently winning. And yeah, my consultancy company is called Kaleidoscope. And if you want us to come in, do some training, strip this back, and make you all feel really uncomfortable, but then lead you through it in an hour and a half, then I'd be more than happy to facilitate such a session for you, either remotely online, or now we can all hang out indoors again. We can make that a thing.
Wonderful.
And you
Amazing.
can find me at jazzgray.com or Jaz Gray Driven on Instagram. Follow me, DM me, look me up. I would love to conduct a workshop, do some consulting, keynote speaking for your organization. Thank you.
Boom.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a total joy to provide some really practical advice and just to have a real open chat and to echo exactly what you were saying, Adam, vital conversations. So for anybody that would like to tune into another one of these sessions, we've got them staggered throughout the rest of Face Equality Week, running up until Sunday. And on Monday next week, I'm going to have an open mic on Instagram Live where anyone can jump in and chat and reflect upon the week. So please do come and use that as a chance to share your experiences and your stories. And just another massive thank you, Emma, Adam and Jaz and Rosemary as well. It's been an utter joy as always, and keep up the incredible work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.